Planning Commission. And we will start the meeting with the invocation. I'll ask CJ to bless our meeting and Mr. Thompson to lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll stand with me.
Bow your heads. Lord, thank you for this evening. Lord, thank you for this time together. Lord, please be with us tonight as we make important decisions for our city. Lord, please be with everyone as they make it home safely. In your son's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mary Ann, would you please call the roll?
Chair Harris.
Here.
Vice Chair Morrell. Mr. Pereira.
Here.
Mayor Brown.
Present.
Councilman Fan.
Here.
Mr. Strouder. Mr. Thompson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Secretary, do you have minutes to present?
I do. I have minutes dated April 7th, 2025, Planning Commission work session meeting minutes, and April 28th, regular agenda meetings, and I submit that I'll make a motion that we approve without any changes.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second for approval without changes to the minutes. All right, seeing no other questions, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. All right, the minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is public comment on agenda-related items. And for folks that don't regularly attend these meetings, I just want to give a little bit of explanation of how this process works. The first item is the ability to comment on any item on the agenda. So you can choose, if you're here for something specific, you can do it. But I ask you to note, there are several items on the regular agenda, starting with item 14, which is Station Camp Master Development Plan. That item has its own individual public comment. So you can speak at either, but it may be better served to speak under the public comment if that's the item you're specifically interested in. The other ones with individual public comments are item 16, Nexus Tennessee amended parcel, 17, Foxland Harbor Marina, 18, Avery Trace, 19, Liberty Branch Townhomes, 20, the paddock at Kennesaw Farms, 21, McCain Station Retail. I think that's it. So,
You didn't mention 15, but it does too.
pardon?
15?
15's been deferred.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Okay, well, there you go.
Sorry, 15 Wedgwood Townhomes was deferred. It is not going to be on the agenda tonight. So with that, we ask that you keep comments to 5 minutes. Our bylaws have public comment at 3 minutes. We've traditionally allowed 5. I imagine we have quite a few people wishing to speak, so if you can try to keep it to 3, that would be appreciated. But with that, I'll open public comment on the agenda-related items for things that don't necessarily have their own comment period, and ask that you come forward and state your name and address for the record. So with that, public comment is now open. So yes, right here at the podium.
Dick Mitter. I live at 1443 Boardwalk Place in Gallatin. And I was wanting to speak about item number 17. I want to convey opposition to the requested changes for the Foxland at Fairview Master Plan. The original master plans never indicated a dry dock, hotel, or restaurant complex. A hotel and restaurant are public commercial facilities not suited for a high-end neighborhood surrounded by a private country club. The associated condos will most likely become short-term rentals, which are highly undesirable. A dry dock facility was never indicated on the master plan. This would be placing an industrial-type commercial building in an established residential neighborhood. Approving a taller industrial building, just increasing the storage capacity, only adds to the many issues associated with this project. I have never seen a dry dock storage facility without undesirable features like boat maintenance, wash rack facilities, and trailer storage. The Planning Commission should review the documented issues found in the Army Corps of Engineers environmental assessment. While many of these issues were ignored or downplayed, they are still relevant to this master plan and should be considered before approving any revisions. Traffic, safety, and security issues are top community priorities. The requested master plan revisions do not align with the Foxland Harbor residential character and lifestyle. They will impact the Douglas Bend and Fairview communities and should not be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Folks, I'm going to ask, we don't allow applause and excitement during the public comments.
My name is Robert Chalice. I live on 1231 Orton Circle in Gallatin. And like this other gentleman, I'm opposed to the changes in the marina. My biggest concern was something I had back last year when the plans were drawn up. There could be the possibility, there was 2 alternate plans, one with 436 boats and the other one with 458 boats. So according to this parking thing on this study here, there's going to be 419 available slots. Now they're counting the 33 slots plus the 3 new slots at the public boat ramp to get the required number of slots they need to service this marina. So basically, if you take off the 181 for the multi-use building, that leaves 238 slots for between 436 to 458 boats. And it just isn't enough parking. I'm familiar with marinas. I've got buddies down in Florida, and they have nice marinas down there, and parking is always a problem because what happens, they might go out to your boat early in the morning and clean it up, and then your wife or children or whatever come out later in the day. Conversely, you might go out there and you invite some friends, they bring a car. And I don't think there's adequate enough parking. Plus, they're counting the 35 slots at the boat ramp. Those slots on the weekend, you can't get in there. And they park on the grass, they park out on the side of the road. I mean, it's brutal. And the other thing I was really concerned about is you're taking away the ability for the common fisherman guy to be able to go out fishing. So that's about all I have to say. I really want you to look at that parking situation, and I don't think we need a hotel there. So I rest my case.
Thank you, sir.
Evening, everybody. Mike Schulte. I live at 1489 Boardwalk Place in Foxland Harbor. I did give you documents to review at your leisure. I'm here to say clearly and firmly, if this project is to move forward at all, it must be right-sized, not supersized. Why would we allow a major commercial development, a marina, a hotel, condominiums, restaurant, a fuel station, dry dock, and parking lots on a one-lane, high-traffic, already dangerous Douglas Bend? This is just not any road. It's a residential corridor. And with all the new planned developments on Douglas Bend Road, how could the current infrastructure possibly handle the strain? Let me remind you of a story. In July 2018, a small restaurant called Top Hog Express opened inside the Shell station on Douglas Bend Road at 31. It lasted 1 month. Top Hog was forced to close after multiple parking violations at the Shell station, at the public ramp, thank you, and the people who parked on Douglas Bend Road in the grass. At a meeting on August 28th, 2018, regarding the issue, our very own Mayor Paige Brown said, and I quote, "They're just trying to get some relief for people trying to access the property and keep the large, busy, visible intersection safe and accessible." Those are her words, and I attached the article on the back. That was in 2018. A lot has changed since then. Since then, Douglas Bend, we've seen more apartments, more condos, more homes, more cars, and more accidents. And now we're talking about adding a marina, restaurant, hotel, and much more. By the mayor's own logic, this is even less viable and less safe than it was back then. And I ask, where is the traffic study? Neither the developer nor the city has presented a traffic study. Let me be clear. A traffic study after the project is approved is not acceptable. A study conducted by the developer is not acceptable. The Corps of Engineers already rubber-stamped the developer's one-sided proposal marina studies without doing their own studies and just accepted the developer's paid one-sided studies. Why? That is not due diligence, that's a rubber stamp. Here's a real-world example in the document I gave you. There's a picture. On this last Saturday at 1:30, coming home from lunch at Campione's, I was heading west on 31, trying to make a left turn on Douglas Bend at the Shell station. I was the 17th car in line to make a left-hand turn onto Douglas Bend off of 31. 17th. Now imagine that traffic will look like with this mega development, plus one large-scale development already in motion on Douglas Bend. Let me ask, how are emergency vehicles supposed to reach residents in Foxland Harbor or along Douglas Bend Road with that kind of congestion on a one-lane street? Let me talk about numbers. 1,582 voting families now oppose this development, up 116 families from your meeting just 2 weeks ago on March 5th. And yet developers and some city officials continue to ignore the growing voices. Now let's move off the roads and onto the water. Just this past weekend, Saturday, in the adjacent cove in Fairview Plantation Cove, a teenager on a jet ski slammed into the brand new large red no wake zone, about this big. Okay? The sign was destroyed. It floated off into Never Never Land. The jet ski was heavily damaged. The base of the sign was floating loose in the cove. That was with current traffic levels on the lake. What happens when you add the boat traffic from a full-blown new marina? Think about the pollution, the sediment, the dredging, the shoreline erosion that's already taking place before a single shovel hits the ground for this proposed project. Let me put it like this, simple terms. Would you put a Walmart at the end of a cul-de-sac? No, of course you wouldn't. But that's exactly what this development would be, a massive commercial center at the dead-end cove and at the entrance of a beautiful residential community. And it's not just a marina. Existing parts of Foxland Harbor, the Grasslands Country Club already faces parking nightmares. During events like the prom, just had it, pictures, and other events, the event center and the parking lot was overtaken. Residents were irate. I'm on the HOA board, I know. Now you want to add condos, restaurants, and a hotel with no serious plan for parking, much less boat trailer parking. Where's it all gonna go? Meanwhile, the Gallatin Marina, he would be here, except his Kentucky, 30
Mr.
seconds.
Schultz, that's your 5 minutes, sir.
I'm almost done. 2 sentences.
Wrap it up quickly, please.
Okay. Meanwhile, Gallatin Marina, just 5 minutes away by boat, is 80% capacity and has the room and means to expand, as well by nearby Cherokee Marina also has the ability and means to expand. There is no need to overbuild, especially at the Westgate entrance of our beautiful city. And finally, why would you allow a trailer park on the water at the entrance of our city known for beauty, quality of life, and smart growth? If this project is moved forward at all, it must be right-sized, not supersized. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, anyone else wishing to speak under the general public comment?
Good evening. I'm John Gardner, and I reside at 1145 McCrory Circle in Fairview. I'm clearly in opposition to this marina project. It's citing at the to Mike's same general view is that, you know, it's at the end of a long cove, and why would one put a marina at that point and have the traffic in a narrow cove going up? I plan to share with you a study that I've done myself. I am registered as a professional engineer during my career. And if you take the 400 and basically 50 boats that are being proposed, you add those to the current traffic, effectively it's a boating parking lot out there. I see this project as detrimental to the owners of all waterfront property across Douglas Bend, Foxland, and Fairview. I see it adding no value. The only value I see being added to is the developers themselves. I'm totally in opposition to the height changes requested in this development. They're out of character for the area and a residential community of the structure of Foxland and also Fairview. I see no need for a commercial hotel in that location, and certainly do not see a need for a 55-foot dry dock in that location. I am in opposition to any change in the materials of construction as they're currently listed under the covenants of Foxland development. This proposed hotel and dry dock are inside the main gate or main archway and entrance to Foxland, and I see the materials of metal building structure being detrimental to the values of my friends in Foxland. One of my biggest concerns is, in fact, safety. We've continued to try to bring forward safety issues associated with both the highways and also the water safety. I'm going to start with water safety. The City of Gallatin has now accepted partial responsibility for the monitoring and safety practices from TWRA with the acceptance of that boat from TWRA. That is a narrow inlet. On Saturday, May 10th, I witnessed 2 near accidents literally in front of my home inside the period of about 45 minutes. There's just no room in that cove for the combination of jet skis, wake boats, and then occasionally large boats trying to come up the middle as well. I see no reason to move forward with this project in any way, shape, or form until we get a strong traffic plan in place done by the City of Gallatin. Mayor Brown asked during one of the public meetings associated with the Army Corps of Engineers of someone on the planning about have we done a road study. The answer she was given that night was no, we have not. You cannot wait until the end of a project to do the road study. Going to Foxland to play golf, I can tell you that in the mornings, you take your life in your own hands as you try to make a left turn off of Douglas Bend onto the main road of Foxland. Cars are speeding through there every morning, and it's car after car after car. You can wait as long as 5 minutes to make a left turn to get to the main road at Foxland. Parking is a major issue. It's not uncommon if you have a later tee time at Foxland that there are no parking slots available. So then now with the developer blocking off what was the open gravel that was up there, you have nowhere to go but to park, double park or park up and on curbs. So in general, I would suggest that and ask that the planning department take a look at a full-blown plan, integrated, and not a constant scope creep that we see on this project from where it started to where it is today. It's constantly being add to, add to, add to. Let's get the real thing out there, and let's get it back to what it was when I bought property in Fairview, and that was, it was to be about a 60-slip community dock, no dry dock storage, no fuel cell, no trailer storage at that location. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is David Shear. I'm a resident of Foxland Harbor. I live on Albatross Way. As a resident of Foxland Harbor, I'm concerned about the direction this project is heading. There seems to be a total disregard to the beauty and the residential character of our neighborhood. The plan to create a massive parking lot that is even shown to encroach on the right-of-way setbacks on Douglas Bend Road is incompatible with prior landscape and developed lots, such as the Grasslands Clubhouse parking, and it is a affront to our neighborhood. The project will allow storage of empty trailers on this parking area unless the Planning Commission conditions approval with this voting change. So if you can condition the zoning change approval to not allow empty trailer parking, I think it's enforceable. Please step up and do the right thing with the denial to allow storage of trailers. The grading of parking and the removal of the side-hiding berm to the north of Foxton Boulevard is a tragedy. It is not shown as a major grading, but in fact, this is a significant grading. Please preserve the existing berm, trees, and landscaping north of Foxton Boulevard as you enter the neighborhood as a condition of your approval. Could the planning staff explain where the restrooms and washing facilities are to be located in Phase 1, which Phase 1 is the parking lot and all the docks? Will there be a fish cleaning station? If so, where will it be located? The project should, if constructed as shown in Phase 1, have no direct connection between the dry dock and marina parking and Foxton Boulevard. Please condition the project to require no access to Foxton Boulevard. Limiting access to Douglas Bend Road for this commercial enterprise of the dry dock barn and marina will be important. Staff may argue that they need 2 entry points. There are not proposing 2 entries in Phase 1 development. I submit it could be years between phases. Advised by the planning staff, it could be longer than 15 years between phases, making the 2 access points moot. The existing parking at the dock has a connector road that the city planning states will be used only for golf carts and pedestrians. This could also be used as an emergency access point if needed. Do condition this project for these limited uses. The buildings are not in agreement with our planning documents for this development and should be rejected. Due to the heavy commercial nature of this development, this project as shown should be rejected. The project must be made to comply with current height and architectural treatments. A barn should not be permitted. I ask what happened to the half-buried, attractive dry storage facility presented to the community last fall. You should demand a return to that style of architecture and reject this proposal. On a personal note, I launch at the existing ramp. I keep my boat in a garage at my home. It is truly a shame that this project is being built in a way to effectively lose this valuable public launch area to the residents of Gallatin. We have too few launch areas today for the public. What a shame. I have 2 copies I'd like to leave with somebody.
Give them to, right here on the end. All right, Mary Ann, sorry. Oh.
I'm Barry Gray, and I live in Foxland Harbor. I'm one of the original investors in Fairview and Foxland, moving here from Seattle years ago. So I'm very aware of the original plan for the marina, how it was presented to us as original investors. In fact, it was presented at that time it would be private, but of course we know it's not going to be. That's not my argument. My argument is what's being presented is nowhere near what was originally told to us that bought the first lots. And I agree with everything that's said, but I want to take a different spin, and I want us to think about our children. My family are educators in Sumner County. Every school in Sumner County has a bass fishing club. Those children depend on that Douglas Bend ramp to practice, to launch their boats, to do their tournaments. They're going to be the real casualty of this. Not everyone can afford a boat. Not everyone can live in Foxland, Fairview. We need to think of the small families that can't do what a lot of us have the privilege of doing. And the children depend on that for their clubs. And there's about 5 high schools within minutes of that launch. So please think of them as you're making a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak under public comment? As a reminder, several of these items do have additional public comments as we get through later in the meeting. All right, seeing no one getting up wishing to speak, I'm going to close public comment on the agenda-related items, and we'll move on to the consent agenda, which consists of the first 11 items on the agenda for this evening. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted. Okay.
I'll like to recuse myself on items 3 through 7 of the consent agenda.
All right, 3 through 7. Yeah, Mr. We're going to recuse himself from those.
And then I will have to recuse myself from items 8 through 11.
Okay. 8 through 11 for CJ. Got it? All right, we got a motion by myself, second by Albert. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, consent agenda carries. With that, that'll move us to item 12, which is Resolution 2025-052, 149 Oaks Drive, detached garage.
Good evening, Commissioners. Brad Hickman, Staff Planner. The owner and applicant request approval of a site plan for a 780-square-foot accessory structure with alternative architecture on a .34 acre lot zoned R15 Medium Density Residential District located at 149 Oaks Drive. Location here. Sorry, my clicker's a little delayed. Location on the property, the intended architecture, and nearby similar developments or accessories, I should say. And these are just one street over. All of these are.
Okay.
The Planning Department recommends denial of the resolution based off of not meeting the 7% brick or stone requirement.
All right, thank you. Do we have a representative of the applicant or the applicant themselves here this evening? I don't see anybody. Brad, have you?
The applicant was informed, but
Okay.
We make sure they're not outside, just in case, because it looks like there's people in the lobby, too.
Mr. Jeffers?
And
Garland Jeffers, 149 Oaks Drive.
All right, no, thank you. I guess, I don't think this is pretty routine, just like a lot of these other ones that we do. You understand why they have to recommend denial? Do they?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And there are other similar metal buildings in your neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Albert's making a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right, Mr. Pereira will second it. So with that, any debate or questions on this project? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. It is approved. Thank you, sir. Item 13, Resolution 2025-048, Connect 55, demand of surety funds.
Yeah, so as we discussed in the work session, this is a site that has been inactive for over 8 months and has not been fully completed per the plans nor stabilized. We've received notice from the bank that the bank will not be renewing the letter of credit for this site. So our only option is to ask for a planning commission to call the letter of credit so we can use the site surety to stabilize the site.
Thank you. And do we have a representative for the applicant here this evening? Yeah, the applicant, is he outside? He left. Okay. Well, I mean, we covered this pretty well at the work session. I mean, I think even the applicant indicated he understood that we were probably going to call this surety since it renews before our next meeting. So I tend to agree with staff on this. Anybody have any questions for staff on the rationales for calling the surety?
I didn't hear, at the work study, I didn't hear any compelling argument not to call the surety, and I think it's necessary for the benefit of the city, so
Jim-
motion that we,
is your microphone on?
I thought it was. There we go.
May just be my hearing.
No, I didn't hear any compelling reason at the work study not to call this surety, and it's imperative that we do so because time's running out. So I make a motion that we instruct staff to call the surety on this.
Second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second to call the surety. CJ?
I guess just discussion out of curiosity, and this is more for future reference. This is the first one that's come through like this. Obviously, the main effort is to stabilize the site, correct?
That's correct, and then do some minor grading so that any runoff doesn't adversely affect adjacent properties.
If work was done on adjacent properties too, is work done to those adjacent properties to bring it back to, because it looks like they built a
temporary sediment pond
basin?
off of their lot. So when we had reached out to get some potential quotes for getting this work done, that was included.
Okay.
Grading that out.
Okay.
Okay.
And remind me, how much is what's the surety amount?
451.
451,000.
Okay.
451,089.12.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, I agree. Any further debate, questions? All right, all those in favor of calling the surety, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. All right, the staff has their direction. Item 14 is Resolution 2025-074, Station Camp Master Development Plan.
Yes, the applicant is requesting approval of a rezoning with a preliminary master development plan for the Station Camp Master Plan. These are 5 properties that were recently annexed into the city next to Sumner Station along Big Station Camp and north of Lower Station Camp Creek Road. These 5 properties are about 83 acres, and they are requesting 3 different zoning districts based on the mixed-use development they are proposing. PGC, Planned General Commercial, up along Big Station Camp and adjacent to the hospital. MU Mixed Use, up against the existing Wellington Farms apartment complex and into the interior of the site, and then R8 or R10 PRD for single-family residential towards the rear of the site along Lower Station Camp Creek Road. They are proposing retail and office development along Big Station Camp, 300-unit apartment complex adjacent to Wellington Farms, a large open space area with pickleball courts under the existing TVA easement area, additional medical offices adjacent to the hospital, senior living, which could potentially include assisted living in the interior of the site, surrounded by townhomes, and then a small residential development in the rear for single family. This development does include exceptions to materials. There was a pattern book included in your packet with some references to the 70% brickstone requirement that is common in the PGC and the MU district. Staff did ask that the portions of the developments within those zoning districts adhere to that requirement, at least until the FMDP, if there's a specific builder, they can ask for more specific exceptions to that requirement. With the residential in the rear, they're asking for 25% brickstone versus a whole 70%. Medical office. With this, they are also asking for height exceptions for the PGC area, which is the commercial and the medical office, and then as well for the apartment complex and senior living. Both of those are pretty typical for these types of developments. For the medical office and the commercial, they're asking for a 55-foot maximum building height, and then for the senior living and the multifamily, they're asking for a 50-foot maximum height. Traditionally, in those zoning districts in MU, it's 35, in PGC, it's 40. So keep that in mind with the requested exceptions. They also had a couple of exceptions needed for the townhome portion of the development. MU has a 6,000 square foot lot size minimum, which is not usually conducive for a townhome development. So those are also noted on the plans and in your reports. For density, the proposed development does have kind of 2 primary areas of residential development. So for the MU portion in particular, they are requesting, when that includes the townhomes, the apartment complex, and the senior living. So if the senior living was more of a age-restricted development versus assisted living, which again, those can kind of have different parking and effects, but they're equipped for either one. That's a density of 14.41 units per acre within that MU area. And then you go down to the R10 area, which is what's highlighted on your screen right now. That's as low as 2.6 units per acre. So taking all the residential area together, you're looking at 9.53 units per acre. Just keep that in mind and that excludes any of the PGC area, and it does exclude 50% of any of the floodplain along Lower Station Camp, to give you some context. This item, as it's a rezoning, there is no zoning currently on this property. This does require public comment. This does require going to City Council with a recommendation from this body. And the applicant is here this evening to discuss their project. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we hear from the applicant, this item has a public comment, so we will hear from the public before we let the applicant speak. So anyone wishing to speak on Station Camp Master Development Plan, this is your opportunity. So public comment on this item is now open. Anyone wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no one indicating they wish to speak, I'm going to close the public comment on this item and ask for a representative of the applicant.
Gentlemen, looks like you might have a long night, so I'm going to keep it real quick and short. We did work with staff on some of the comments. We did take some of the considerations of the feedback that y'all gave us at the work session. And so, as Jillian said, it's 9.53 units per acre on the residential portion. Although there were some other things we had requested, Jillian ran a hard bargain, and so we are happy to agree to all the comments with further discussion on 1, 6, and 12. For number 1, I guess I have the question. It's about the brick requirement. Is that following statement that's on the second portion of that? Is that allowed to stay? That's 70%, and then we'll consider it further at future meetings, similar to what we've seen on some others? Or is it here, and
Are you asking if later they can ask for an exception from that?
I don't want to, no, not an exception, just if we can provide quality facades, like, is that evaluated at a future case, or is it?
So the FMDP will get more specific architecture. So this is, I would encourage that this stay a condition until you have a specific builder, and then we can evaluate those facades.
Okay.
Unless you're prepared to provide facades now.
Nope, we're fine with that, and then we'll evaluate it with specific builders as they come along. So we're happy to, I just wanted to clarify. Item 6 with the hospital connection, again, we are in support of that. We are happy to continue working with that. We are still having conversations with them, and so it is moving forward, but I have no concrete anything to provide the board, so we'd ask that that's a condition, so we can continue working through that with staff and move that along. And then the last one I want to bring up is 12, and that connection to Lower Station Camp Road. We totally understand connectivity, and we think that there's a place for it where it makes sense. And certainly after being at the work session, I understand some situations in which it does make sense. I'm not sure this is one of them, and I'd welcome the feedback from the Planning Commission. Lower Station Camp Road floods frequently, and so a full access connection there has some heartburn of the usability of it and what it means for Lower Station Camp Road. It's not just a little bit of flooding, it's a lot of flooding and frequent. So yeah, I would like to hear from the Planning Commission on how they feel about that connection.
Could you please state your name, ma'am?
What was that?
State your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kelly Hyatt, Maris, 1222 Demumbrium, Nashville.
I think, question, by all means, go ahead.
So does the county allow property to access a road in the floodplain?
There is county guidelines that say a connection should not be made to roads in a floodplain. We can continue to have conversations with them, but that is what their written subdivision regulations say.
there a potential alternate solution?
That regulation is part of their subdivision regulations. This is not a county subdivision, so I don't know that regulation of the county would apply in this instance. I don't know that the county could enforce that, being it's not a subdivision within their jurisdiction.
I've looked at this and thought on it myself. I think that, the issue of the flooding of Lower Station Camp is a valid concern, which I actually would take as a reason for the connection, so that people find themselves on that road have a way off that road if it starts to flood. So I think it's probably more positive than negative in that scenario.
I will point out that from the connections on either side of it, once the 5 residents that we are purchasing the property from, once those are purchased, all the driveways in that segment of Lower Station Camp would be eliminated. So there would be no, hopefully, people who would find themselves flooded without someplace to go.
Right. No, I understand. Talk to me a little bit about the use of the hospital's access road and where that leaves you if you're unable to work that out, and what happens to this plan.
So we are going to continue evaluating that with city engineering and traffic engineering and all of those things as more come along. But it's our intention, and I believe we're committing to it being the obligation of this zoning that we would have that connection. We've had initial conversations with various people at the hospital, and it seems to make sense with their future growth plans that they also vision for their hospital to serve the community of Gallatin. But they just have a real estate department that has a process, and their process takes time. And so we are very optimistic that it will come. And so we really, I don't want to say don't have a plan B, because there's always a plan B, but we're committed to it being there at that signalized intersection.
So question I have for staff, if we approve the rezoning on this property with that condition the way it's written, and they're unable to get it, does the zoning go away, or does the zoning stay on the property?
It's obviously a condition of the approval of the project, so I would say the entitlement is not there unless they can meet all the conditions.
Okay. What I don't want to do is find ourselves in a scenario where we've approved a rezoning and a plan expecting access that ultimately doesn't show up, and then we're having to rework a plan that is probably something we may not have done. So
I would agree. I mean, I said this at the work session. I don't think this project functions without that connection. And so this connection, in my opinion, would have to be constructed with phase 1 of the development, if it gets to that point.
I love the office and medical. I like the senior living. The apartments, bother me. I know that everybody wants them to make a project work. And that is the corridor for that. I mean, that was the purpose in building that road. For those of you, it predates, which is some of you, but it's a lot more units. And so I'd be really curious to know what kind of bedroom count you're looking at, because I know all the parking is based on the number of bedrooms, but we don't have a sense of what that number of bedrooms would be, because 1 bedrooms have a way different effect than 3 bedrooms. And so I think that I don't have a problem with the height exception on the medical part or the senior living. I do on the multifamily, but that's just me.
Please.
Sometimes it's helpful if I repeat back what I heard you say, make sure I understood it correctly. Are you saying that you're moving forward with and executing this project would be contingent upon getting that access worked out with High Point Health Systems adjacent to you?
We are okay with it being a condition of the rezoning. I would like to further understand that a little bit with staff, because it doesn't have zoning. So if the access goes away, that's tied with the PMDP. Does the zoning go away, or that plan's not executable and therefore a future major or minor amendment to the PMDP would be required?
Maybe I might try to help explain. If we're going to approve the zoning for this plan, if that access goes away and it doesn't undo the zoning, I'm not going to support it. So
Okay.
so it goes back to the question of staff, is if, does the zoning go, does the property keep the entitlements in the zoning if the condition can't be met? Or is it zoned?
Rezoned once it's rezoned, or is it tied?
I'll try to respond. The PMDP is a governing document that, no matter what the zoning is, would still have to be complied with at that point. And unless the PMDP were updated and amended and changed to something that this body would be okay with, and the city council as well.
But here's what, I don't mean to interrupt, but here's what we have seen happen, and I think this is kind of the question, is 10 years down the road, when none of us might not be sitting here, and the zoning exists, but the PMDP didn't work, and they come back and have entitlements based on the zoning, then they want something different that is not what is this plan that we're looking at today. And then that planning commission or that city council is going, well, they have zoning, and we feel like we have to honor that, and...
That's the scenario I want to avoid.
Let me ask another question, or a different question. How long is the PMDP valid for?
3 years.
And what happens at 3 years if they can't get a connection and no other revisions come through?
The zoning is still in place, but the PMDP's expired.
Recall when this came through for the annexation, I asked if there were plans for this property or the project, and the answer that we got was no, there's no specific plans. So if this plan was created after it was zoned, it seems like maybe it's a little premature to be here at this stage.
No, it wasn't zoned when it was...
No, I know it wasn't zoned, but it wasn't annexed. When it was annexed just, a few months ago, there was no plan for the property. And, so it seems to me it might be, prudent to get the access and the agreements worked out before we put zoning on it. So, because what I don't like doing is approving things to the mayor's point where that circumstances change and then we find ourselves, losing control of what happened with the zoning. It's the whole reason we rezone with a master development plan. But this one, as it's drawn, can't be constructed if they can't work out an agreement with the hospital. So.
You guys have any suggestions?
I mean, I guess it's up to you all to vote to determine if you're comfortable or want to recommend that this property be rezoned at this time. Staff was comfortable with there being a condition of approval that they obtain the access and the property necessary for the proposed access that's there. I think at this point, it's okay to expect that those types of things would be worked out. And I believe if in the future something didn't pan out the way that it was originally planned, it would still come back to this body for a reapproval of some sort of access. So I'm not afraid that, somehow entitlements would be granted that wouldn't allow us to continue to work that out if it needed to be.
And given the site constraints anywhere, where you have two developed properties on either side of it, anything that goes here will probably have similar access discussions.
Well, and truly too, as I'm sitting here arguing with myself, truly too, say the zoning does move forward and the plan were to go away, what more intense would be there? I mean, that's kind of, you're already looking at something really intense.
I think from a zoning standpoint, I think we kind of assumed that something was obviously going to go here, given the comp plan, given the nature of the corridor. My concern is my initial concern was that not only do you need the connection, but it needs to be built like day one with phase one. But if it doesn't, then you're going back and completely revising the plan, which is automatically a major change. Now, obviously, the planning commission, whenever that happens, it has to vote that it's a major change. But, because you would be drastically changing the circulation of the site. And then you would have, what, 1,000 units and some commercial dumping out into a non-signalized intersection.
And it'd be one intersection. That's, I think that's the point, is if this access isn't able to be worked out, then you have an approval for a plan that's going to having one primary access. They can satisfy the secondary by going to, Station Camp Creek, but it's, that's the concern. I would prefer that the access be worked out before we rezone it, but I'm just one vote up here, so.
I mean, we wouldn't approve it without dual access, so protects it in the future to some degree.
It would have dual access, though, is what I'm saying, is you would have dual access, you'd have one access point on Big Station Camp and the other on Lower Station Camp. So they could still satisfy the 2 points of access, even if the.
I'd say development of that size has to connect to a signal.
Would agree.
It sounds to me like everyone is agreeable to what you're proposing to do here, but not unless we know about the access. How much time do you think it will take to work with the real estate department of High Point Health Systems to work this out? Would it be in your best interest to defer this and work this out with them and then come back and give you a yes?
I don't know. Their time frame was 30 to 60 days. We approached them before, like immediately after coming in, so making the submittal, knowing that this would be a time period. We'd had some conversations with them before. I don't know I can have an answer by the next planning commission meeting or when I could have that. I do obviously just defer to y'all, but we will have more opportunities at city council. This isn't the last vote. And so I will have more time. Yes, if you guys are going to tell me I need to defer, I will happily defer as opposed to getting denial. But I would prefer to have a little more time to work that out with the.
I understand what she's saying.
Can we add language to number 12 to cover the concerns in regards to when the project approval?
I think city council
this
only
needs to be
receives
done.
from us a vote. They don't get summarized.
You mean
Defer my director.
condition 6?
6, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was just going to suggest to try to address what CJ had brought up about, that if you're wanting to make sure that the roadway is built in the beginning of the project, then you can add language to that speaks to that degree at least, that helps us be more comfortable that that roadway would be available upon the beginning of the project. That doesn't necessarily address the issue of the ownership of the land or the access to, the easement to be able to do the road, but at least I think that would address the timing issue. And again, as a staff, I think we feel comfortable that they could obtain those easements. And obviously, if they couldn't, that they'd have to come back and come up with a different design.
At that point, they have zoning, put a lot of units into something that might wind up with the primary entrance being onto an access road with no signalized intersection. Like, that goes back to my underlying concerns. If this was already worked out, I have very few concerns.
Appreciate that.
So,
It sounds to me like they're going to have this worked out before council votes on it, though.
well, I think our job is to send things to city council with a recommendation that we think is appropriate, and I'm not willing to send this to the city council not knowing what's going to happen with this road.
Could I propose, are we able to put a condition that the zoning reverts to no zoning if the driveway is not attached to it?
That would solve my concerns. but
Like
I don't
to-
think legally we can do that.
I wanted to ask that question, but I didn't think it's ever been done.
I don't think that's possible.
I've never heard of it being done.
Okay.
I'd be uncomfortable with a change like that is caveated with, and that would actually affect the zoning of the property.
Yeah, I don't like the precedent that sets.
Trying to make sure we address
Sure.
trying to address your concerns creatively.
What you're talking about is
Appreciate the willingness, though. I mean, truly.
I mean, we feel confident that this is going to work itself out. We just need time. and the hospital's time versus the seller's goal time doesn't always, so we'd like to keep moving this forward so that we can accomplish what everybody's looking for, with the understanding that you guys do have backstops, and it having to go through a couple more checks and balances, but I also understand your position and your responsibility as Planning Commission.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
Can a condition be amended before we vote on the full thing?
What do you mean?
So if I want to add language to condition 6,
Yes, you
add
could.
it before we vote on the full thing.
What do you think? And I'm curious.
No, I don't believe you can, amend a condition unless you have a motion on the table under consideration.
I believe you could make a motion to approve with a recommendation for a change to a condition during your
Yes.
motion.
That would be acceptable. So, that-
Might be the best posture to defer it so that everybody can think.
if the applicant wishes to defer it, I'll give them that option. If we defer it, it starts a 60-day clock ticking, or if we don't have a chance to address it, then it's approved by default. So I'm very hesitant for us to defer that. So,
Well, it's a recommendation of approval, but not approved.
Correct.
right, we're sending it to city council with a recommendation.
I mean, if the 60 days expires, it's not approved by default. It's the recommendation of approval. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh, splitting hairs.
Yeah. So, anyway.
Hearing the feedback from everybody and that in mind, we can defer the project if that would make everybody a little more comfortable, and we can see what progress we can make before the next meeting.
Okay, well then, I'll make a motion that we accept the applicant's request for deferral.
A second.
A second by Mr. Thompson. So all those in favor of granting the applicant's request for deferral, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Okay. Item 15 was deferred by the applicant, so that takes us to item 16, Resolution 2025-034, Nexus Tennessee Amendment, Parcel H.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim Carpenter, staff planner. The owner and applicant request approval of an amended preliminary master development plan for Nexus, Tennessee, Parcel H on 17.2 acres, zoned MU Mixed Use Zone District, located south of West Albert Gallatin and east of 109. The owner and applicant request approval to designate Parcel H, this triangle portion, as the second 300-unit multifamily development for this project. As a reminder, the original PMDP was approved with 900 units, so this would be taking it to 600. The applicant also requests approval of an alternative architecture and requests approval of a height exception to 55 feet, maximum building height. These are both consistent with the first multifamily FMDP for Nexus. With that, staff recommends that this be considered a minor amendment and recommends approval of Resolution 2025-034 with one condition, and there will be a public comment on this item.
Thank you, Jim. With that, I'll at this time open a public comment on Resolution 2025-034, Nexus Tennessee Amendment to Parcel H. Public comment is now open. Seeing no one indicating they wish to speak, I'll close the public comment and ask for a representative of the applicant. And CJ, I'll ask you to take over just for a few minutes.
Sir.
Good evening, John Haas with Edge, here to answer any questions. We agree with staff's comment.
Okay. Is there anything to add from staff or from any of the planning commission? Engineering, good with everything?
Yeah, we didn't have any comments.
Yeah, I think we covered most everything at the work session. I mean, this has been, I think the final location may have not been fully decided at PMDP, but it's progressed through the planning stages, but y'all finalized the location for it. So, anyone have a motion?
I'll make a motion for the minor amendment.
Minor amendment? Okay, second. Any discussion on the minor amendment? Okay, all those in favor of a minor amendment, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, so it's a minor amendment. Any other discussion on the main item? Anyone have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I will
With all conditions.
All conditions, I will second that. Any discussion? Staff, anything to add? No? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Can we take a break before we get into a long discussion?
Yes, ma'am. We're at 6:01 right now. We're going to take a 5 or 10 minute? 5-minute break.
All right, folks, I'm going to call this meeting back to order and give everybody a moment to take their seats. All right, so we'll resume with item 17, Resolution 2025-069, Foxland Harbor Marina, amended preliminary master development plan.
Mr. Chairman, I'll need to recuse myself as I own properties in both Foxland and Fairview.
All right, so noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The owner and applicant request approval of an amended PMDP for the Foxland Harbor Marina. In 2023, the marina use was added to the master plan for application to the Corps. Included with this amendment is the dry storage building and the condo hotel mixed-use building. The dry storage building will contain 200 slips, and the mixed-use building the plans indicate that it contains 110 hotel rooms, 20 condos, and 5,000 square feet of commercial, 3,500 of that as a restaurant, and 1,500 to 1,600 as retail for the marina. The applicant requests approval of a height exception. The plans presented show a max height of 56 feet for the dry storage building and a max height of 88 feet for the mixed-use building, although plans show that the parapet is roughly 68 to 70 of that particular plan. Transient habitation is an allowed use in MRO, multiple residential and office zone district, with a conditional use. Conditional uses may be approved through the master plan amendment process. The applicant also requests approval of an alternative architecture plan with the dry boat storage building as primarily comprising metal and hardy siding, with the...
Be quiet, please. See, Jim.
The materials for the hotel condo building were not submitted. This architecture is not consistent with the approved Foxland Master Development Plan. Staff has included conditions of approval for both the dry storage and the mixed-use building to be at least 70% brick stone on all facades. With that, staff would recommend that the stone match the existing Foxland Harbor Reverie Point condo buildings, along with that. Also, due to the changes in the mixture of uses for this and with the architecture as submitted, planning staff recommends that this be considered a major amendment to the Foxland Master Plan and recommends approval of resolution number 2025-069 with 10 conditions. And there will be public comment on this item.
All right, thank you, Jim. At this time, I'm going to open public comment on resolution 2025-069 and ask if anyone wishing to speak can come. Please keep your comments to 5 minutes. There will be a timer when you hear it. That's time to stop talking and be respectful for others. And anybody wishing to speak, please come forward. Public comment is now open.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I'm Chandra Waller, and I live on Albatross Way in the Foxland subdivision. As I know you're aware, Foxland is a fully developed, high-end residential community. I have many serious concerns regarding the current proposal and the development of the Foxland Harbor Marina. The current project has changed drastically since Goodall presented it to the community last fall. It's a blatant example of bait and switch. We were shown architectural renderings that were somewhat appealing and consistent with the neighborhood. As you can see, that's all gone away. Further, he's made no attempt to share his updated vision with the community and in fact has secretly made plans with just his supporters aware of what's going on. The current proposal with associated waivers of the city standards is certain to detract from the residential character of the community, increase traffic congestion, and perhaps result in decreased property values. Following are some of my concerns. With over 200 slips, where will the boat trailers be parked? If allowed in the adjacent parking lot, it will definitely be an eyesore for the Foxland community and others. Just take a look at some of the existing marinas on Old Hickory and the trailers that are parked helter-skelter. You'll see for yourself what I mean as far as ugly. The developer has requested a waiver of the 35-foot height restriction to allow 88 feet. That's over 53 feet higher than your own city standards. It's definitely going to stick out like a sore thumb to the Foxland community and other adjacent properties. In addition to the height waiver request, the facades of both buildings are completely out of conformance with your own city standards, requiring 70% stone and brick. The developer proposes to use metal siding and hardy board. Think pole barn. The hotel condo is also not aligned with the existing architecture in the community. Look at the bright blue roof that they are proposing and other non-conforming colors and materials. A major commercial development such as that proposed should not get access from a completely residential street. All access should be from Douglas Bend. If emergency access is needed, a gate should be installed on Foxland Boulevard for emergency responders only to use. The magnitude of this project and its many significant waivers demands the city require a major, not a minor, amendment process. Thank you for allowing me to speak to all of these issues of critical concern to our community. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Chairman, Madam Mayor, members of the commission, my name is Tom Lee. I'm a resident of Nashville. I'm an attorney in the law firm of Nelson Mullins, Riley, and Scarborough, and I'm pleased to be here tonight on behalf of Friends of Old Hickory Lake. Friends of Old Hickory Lake are the folks you see in this room. They're wearing the red shirts, the red ties, the red hats, and there are more than 1,500 families who have joined our petition in support of a significant reform to this proposal. We agree with the Planning Commission staff, Mr. Chairman, and that is this is a major change. Under any interpretation of Section 15.07.030, this is a major change to the existing plan, and it's not the first one. I concur completely with Mayor, and you, Mr. Chairman, on item 14, when you said you're frustrated when plans come back before you, and they change, and they change, and they change. This is the third change that's been brought to you in 3 years. You should be frustrated with that when it happens. You should also be frustrated, I think, to make sure that the language in the resolution that you've been asked to approve is consistent with both staff recommendation in this matter and where you hope it to go. Right now, Resolution 2025-069, as presented in your package, says that the amended PMDP is consistent with the purpose and intent of MU mixed use and MRO multiple residential and office zone districts. Well, it will be if you approve a conditional use for the hotel. It would be in the R20 district, the R20 parcel that is the northernmost parcel on which there is a plan for parking and also roadway access. That's commercial use. It is used to support the commercial development. And if there's not a conditional use permit before you, then you should be very cautious about this proposal. The amended PMDP does not constitute a major amendment. That's the language of the resolution. We would encourage you to amend that language before you adopt it and send it forward, as this does constitute a major amendment to the resolution. I'd like to talk about a couple of the specifics, and they've been mentioned by some, but they're worth bearing again. In this zoning district, the maximum height's 35 feet, and that's 3 stories. The hotel presented before you has a maximum of 88 and a minimum of 63. Minimum exceeding the standard by more than 50%. Same is true for the dry dock, almost 50% more than the maximum allowed. Section 2 should be amended to require the hotel and dry dock elevations to comply with the maximum heights for the development. Also, the traffic study should not wait and should not be the sole province of the engineering department to review. A completed traffic study should come before you for the reasons you've heard, numerous compelling reasons from residents of the neighborhood, and you should require in Section 2 a completed traffic plan as a condition of approval upon resubmission. Finally, with respect to the overall property and the architectural look, right now, Resolution 2025-69 says that the amended PMDP is consistent with the purpose and intent and complies with the height regulations, and the development will not change the essential character of the approved Foxland Master Development Plan. It would without the exceptions necessary on the architectural side. There's a reason you haven't been provided, I submit, with materials that would be used. It's because they don't know. And if they don't know, you should ask why not if we're at this stage of the process. You should ask that question of them when they come before you. Finally, Section 1, Paragraph 1 should be revised to reflect that the amended preliminary master development plan is not in agreement with the intent and the land use recommendations of Plan Gallatin until such time as all preconditions to approval are met. Section 1, Paragraph 2 should be revised to read that the amended plan is not consistent with the intent of the MU and MRO districts and does not, as submitted, comply with the use restrictions and the minimum height regulations in these districts. Most of all, Section 1, Paragraph 3 should be revised to reflect that the amended plan does constitute a major revision to the approved master plan for the reasons set forth in the Gallatin zoning ordinance. Staff has done its work and given good counsel to you on this project. The members of Friends of Old Hickory believe it is essential that the commission not arbitrarily reject that advice, given the plain language of the controlling zoning ordinances and the master plan before you. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak? I'll say if there's others that want to speak, you're free to line up behind staff in the wall if you want to line up, but you're not required to. Yes, ma'am, please.
Good evening. Estelle Barnes, 1024 Clubview Drive. I'm a brand new resident of Foxland Harbor, brand new resident to Gallatin, Tennessee. Moved here for elderly family matters. Wanted to be transparent that I'm not familiar with the original plan. I simply am familiar with the amendment before you today. There are 6 items I wanted to share, 5 of which have already been shared previously, so I won't go in depth on that, related to zoning and master plan compatibility, precedent risks associated to this amendment, environmental review transparency, traffic and infrastructure study validity, and then, of course, you're allowing for public input. But I want to focus on number 6, which is legal considerations. And the question raised is the city protected against liability if infrastructure or environmental damages result from this project? And the argument being if flooding, sewer overflows, or lake contamination occur and are tied to this development, the city may be liable for damages or cleanup under the current federal and state environmental laws. That exposure must be evaluated before moving forward. As a resident, I wanted to elaborate further on the legal and regulatory commentary. Spot zoning concerns, comment on that would be approving a commercial hotel multifamily condo in a previously residential or recreational zoned area may constitute spot zoning, which courts have repeatedly struck down if it serves a private developer rather than public interest. The legal risks associated to that, this opens the city to legal challenges by nearby property owners who can argue that the change is arbitrary, capricious, or inconsistent with the city's comprehensive plan. Number 2, equal protection and fair treatment. If this development receives favorable zoning and regulatory exceptions not afforded to other nearby landowners, it may raise equal protection concerns under the state land law use. Legal risk, favoritism, or inconsistent application of zoning policies could result in lawsuits or state-level review. 3, risk of infrastructure liability. If stormwater runoff sewer overflow, or roadway degradation occurs as a result of overtaxed infrastructure, and the city approved the development without adequate safeguards, it could be held liable for downstream damages. Your legal risk: this is especially significant near lakefront property and under Tennessee water quality laws. Property owners affected by flooding or contamination could pursue legal action. 4, failure to comply with state and federal environmental law. This development could trigger review under the Clean Water Act, NEPA, or TDEC regulations. Proceeding without these fully addressed and documented could expose the city and the state or federal enforcement actions. Your legal risk, particularly if dredging, fuel docks, shoreline alterations are involved. These often require Army Corps TDEC approval before local planning bodies can greenlight construction. 5, precedent for litigation from homeowner association. HOAs and local property groups have legal standing and have successfully sued municipalities over plan amendments that violate neighborhood covenants, increase density beyond original agreements, or reduce property values. Your risk: if existing HOA bylaws or prior agreements limit density or use, this plan could violate them and trigger lawsuits. 6, and my final comment, violation of comprehensive growth policies. This amendment may be in conflict with Gallatin's adopted land use and growth management policies, which are legally binding guiding documents. Any such inconsistency weakens the city's position in future land use regulations. Your legal risk: a misalignment here could open the door for further development challenges, undermining the Planning Commission's authority in future rulings. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Folks, I've repeatedly asked not to clap and applaud and be respectful. While you may not like what the developer's proposing, he has the right to be respected as well as you do. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? All right. Anyone who signed up on the sign-up sheet, I didn't go by the sign-up sheet. I wanted to make sure we gave anyone who was here the opportunity to speak. So one more time, is anybody else? Sir, you, please.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Edwin Mims. I live at 905 Ramsey Drive here in Gallatin, Tennessee. I appreciate the opportunity to speak for you this evening. I have several concerns, and the number one is public safety, and one of those being traffic. I know several of y'all on the board, Mayor Brown used to live behind me down there in Douglas Bend many years ago. I'm gonna recollect, Colonel Strother, I've worked with you in the past, and in terms of public safety, I think this is a very important issue to address as a planning commission. And I don't know if y'all recall, but Douglas Bend when it was realigned, that road collapsed and it had to be rebuilt. I don't know if y'all recollect that or not. It's being built. It was built on wetlands, and I don't know how y'all are addressing the wetlands in this plan, but it should be a serious consideration. Also, it's a one-lane road. I come through there this afternoon with a school bus. There's been a lot of development there since it all started, Foxland started. You've got a Shell station on the corner. You've got a restaurant on up the road. You have the commercial development of the restaurant at the grasslands, and you have multiple apartment complexes. You've got one lane of traffic going each direction. If there's an emergency, traffic stops. And irregardless of everything else, I hope you will consider your fire department and police department. If they can't get there to save a life, it's a dangerous situation. That's all I'm asking, that if you're going to do this project, that a very major traffic study be done, completed, immediately in front of the Douglas Bend area. That intersection of Foxland Boulevard is in a blind curve. I don't know if y'all have ever had that looked at or not, but people are shooting through there and they can't stop at the stop sign so they can see out. It's a blind curve. And I hope y'all will address that and have a detailed traffic study immediately right there at Douglas Bend, but also within a 1 mile area of that area. You've got ambulances and fire trucks running complete all the time up there to NHC and the other assisted living within a 1 mile radius of there. So I hope y'all will take that into account. There's been way too much overgrowth in that immediate area, traffics. You've got golf carts that have a limitation of 20 miles an hour driving on a 35-mile-per-hour road. So that's another consideration. So before you go any further, I hope you will reject this currently at this time until a complete traffic study's done. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Lois Strong. I live at the very end of Foxland Boulevard. I hear boats, I hear sounds from radios, I hear accelerating boats just now without an additional marina added to the area. The sound pollution will be exacerbated to a larger degree, not to mention having additional housing. I, like Mike, have waded through up to 5 left turn lane cycles in order to get into Douglas Bend. We already deal with boats coming from the gas station, going across to the boat launch, and the issues involved there. Because of this situation of the driveway from the gas station going across the street to the launch, that will be exacerbated extremely by additional boat traffic. It is a public launch. I understand the land on the other side is private, but there's no way those boats who want to use the public launch will be able to use it in a proper way. I just don't understand how this marina thing got started to begin with, other than the guy wanted to develop it, but for it to continue is a horrible use of land. It's a horrible use of private property, and I would hope that with these additional amendments that the Planning Commission would just pull the whole project off and leave it alone.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak under public comment on this item? All right, going once. All right, seeing no one indicating they wish to speak, public comment on this item is now closed, and we will hear from the applicant. All right, sir, are you the applicant?
Thomas,
Okay.
2044 Albatross Way.
Sir, not to be rude, but we just closed the public comment and asked for the applicant.
Pardon me?
We just closed the public comment, seeing no one else was asked twice if anyone else wishes to speak. But excuse me, 1 second. Without objection, I'm not opposed to reopening the public comment and letting this gentleman speak.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor of reopening the public comments, this gentleman can speak, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. No. Please, sir, thank you.
I have a master's degree in agricultural and environmental economics, and I'm a general contractor. Whenever I do a job even a tenth of this size, I have to do an environmental impact study and a traffic study. I don't know if either of these things have been done yet, and if so, who has the results and why is this project going ahead? I live on the lake, and if you try to do anything with a property on the lake, the Army Corps of Engineers will not let you remove trees, they won't let you remove brush or do anything else. Why is it that the Army Corps of Engineers has already gone ahead and gone as far as they have without some environmental impact study or a traffic study? The other issue is the traffic. Coming down Gallatin Pike or Nashville Pike trying to turn into Foxland Harbor right now sometimes takes at least 2 light changes. If there were that many boat slips and that many hotel rooms, I think the traffic would be just completely impossible. So I'd like to know, first of all, if there is a environmental impact study, who did it and where is the environmental impact study? And if there is a traffic study, and where the traffic study is and who did that, and who is responsible for doing those things?
Sir, could you restate your name, please? Sir?
Sir.
Excuse me, sir. Could you restate your name, please?
Pardon me?
Your name?
Oh, Peter Thomas?
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we reopen public comment to let that gentleman speak. So with that, public comment is now officially closed, and we will hear from the applicant.
Members of the Planning Commission, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. I appreciate the neighbors coming up and speaking. You can tell they're very passionate about where they live, and that's a nice thing to hear about our community. I guess to start it out, I know there's lots of questions, there's lots of things been swirling around with this particular development. And if y'all don't mind, just maybe start with what you have on your mind, what questions do you have that you need answered? And let me start with that.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Goodall?
I have a long list. I tell you what I think would be helpful is if you would help us by going back and comparing and contrasting the differences between what was originally approved and where we are now, what you see as advantages, I know others see as disadvantages, but it has been kind of a long look. I think that would help. And then there was one gentleman that actually had questions. I thought some of them were good and they'd be quick and easy for you to address. So.
What's shown to you now is the approved preliminary master development plan that came before the Gallatin Planning Commission. And this is when we first had only around the 3 acres of the marina property. And subsequently, we gained another 4.5 acres, and that's why the plan changed, and that's why it got larger. The big differences between this plan and the plan that we've submitted tonight is that the plan that's approved by the Gallatin Planning Commission only has access onto Foxland Boulevard. It did not have any access onto Douglas Bend Road. And that was because of a couple of reasons. One, we don't have the land to come on to Douglas Bend Road. We had to come across a lease area with the Corps. And then the other thing that happened with us adding the concierge dry storage, it gave us the ability to pay for that Douglas Bend Road entrance. The Douglas Bend Road entrance is going to have a couple of...
Folks, Mr. Goodall, I can just stick. Folks, we're going to be respectful of Mr. Goodall, same way he was respectful when you got your turn to speak. And if we can't do that, we can clear the room and finish this meeting without an audience. Thank you for your cooperation. Mr. Goodall.
So it enabled us, by adding the concierge dry storage, it enabled us to have enough resources to add that turning lane onto Douglas Bend Road. So those are the main differences to it. This plan here did not include the concierge dry storage. It only included the restaurant and the parking lot and then the docks that are on the lake. So this is what was already approved. And when we added the 4.5 acres, we expanded it to add the hotel and also the concierge dry storage.
Would you talk about the public access too? Because there's confusion on both sides as to what happens with the public access.
The public ramp that is there is now under our lease. That was part of our lease area. So now we're responsible for mowing it, picking up trash, restriping the parking lot. but that access will remain public. So there's no changes to what has been done in the past up till now, and there will be no changes going forward to that being, remaining open to the public.
It retains the same number of public spaces there.
We did put
Looks
on
like
our
more to
plans.
me because you have that pavilion. I don't remember that. It's been a long time since I launched from there, but.
We did add a section of golf cart parking to try to expand the parking. And that's for residents that live in the neighborhood that can, it probably isn't for somebody that lives way down Douglas Bend Road, but for the Foxland residents that want to utilize that area, that we
Is that
do
what
have
that
golf
little
cart.
part is at the end? Is that what that
Be
is?
closest to Douglas,
Okay, yeah.
National Park. And it looks like we can add maybe a few spaces to the edge of the parking lot. We can maybe get maybe 3 or 4 more parking spaces other than what's there now.
I had a question for engineering, if I can. So the condition number 9 that's in the resolution requires the additional traffic impact study and the requirement that what recommendations are made by that they would have to perform. Is that the way I understand that?
That's correct.
Okay, so the traffic study comes back and is reviewed by engineering and recommends improvements to Douglas Bend Road. That would be a requirement as a part of this approval.
That's correct.
Okay, so make sure I understood that correctly.
With that currently, how is it, again, for the benefit because of confusion, what changes now happen to Douglas Bend with the new plan versus the old plan that just had the entry through the boulevard? Because this adds a turning lane. Does it block off, you may know this, Aaron, block off, because you don't want boats coming across that road trying to get into that public launch from that squirrely exit at the boat, at the, the C-store there.
Are you asking if there's a turn lane into the first boat ramp?
No, at that point, you still got to turn lane onto Douglas Bend, so that wouldn't be right. I'm visualizing.
I think we voluntarily showed the traffic improvements, which would be turn lanes off of Douglas Bend Road to get into the marina site on the newest submission.
In and out.
Come in both directions.
There's a very small left turn lane going into the public parking lot and the public access.
Isn't it the same one that people are getting in to turn left onto 31?
It's separated by a double yellow line, but very close.
I guess a question for you on the boat dry storage building with the height. That just seems like a very large building to be very prominent. So I guess that's.
What was the height that someone referenced you presenting and to the community at some point? We never saw it, I don't think, but someone said one had been presented prior that wasn't the height of this one.
We looked at a lot of dry storages across the country. We looked at a number of them that were, had been developed in the Mid-South area on lakes that were similar situation to what we have here, and derived at this particular design. And what we did, we looked at it, what does it take to have a financially healthy dry storage that can serve the community? We would love to have it, 80 feet tall, 70 feet tall, 60 feet tall, but it took the 55 feet to make it, to get the size boats and to get the number of boats that you need to make that financially successful, because you've got to buy 2 forklifts, you've got to have people that operate them. There's a break-even point that kind of occurs. The dry storage itself, I look at it as a enormous amenity to the city. Right now, we don't have an indoor dry storage. The Gallatin Marina has got one, but it's kind of open-ended, where this one would be totally enclosed. There's a number of people that want their boat inside a facility that doesn't get spiders on it, that don't get critters, crawling up on it, that don't get, weather coming in on it. It's a convenience to those, especially those that live close, to be able to, on their app or on their phone, call, and their boat is ready and in the water and clean and ready to go. So the one thing I think about the dry storage is we don't have one now in the city of Gallatin. The Corps, did approve us to have a dry storage here. But if the vision of the, city of Gallatin was that we don't want a dry storage, we may not ever get another one. So I think this is our opportunity to be able to get an amenity that serves our community for a long time ahead. I think it's a really good thing. And I think the height, we looked at the height from a number of different angles. And from the back, from the lake, we've got a number of mature trees that are going to continue to stay. The part that's towards Gallatin Road, that area has a number of mature trees that are going to stay. The front is mitigated somewhat because we've got a retaining wall that covers up part of it, and then we've got landscape trees in the parking lot. And I think we've thought through a lot of the concerns that the residents have, and I totally understand. It's a scary thing seeing a big building. It's a scary thing seeing the marina, but I think we thought through a lot of these items and feel very confident that once we're done with it, that the residents are going to be happy with it.
Going down my checklist.
Pardon me?
I have a concern about the traffic. Given Douglas Bend as narrow as it is with the current, and I know we're concerned about the improvement of the building thing. Given the current situation now with the traffic flow as it is prior to your building, do you feel that there's any issues or current issues with this development?
Traffic is always a concern. I mean, for those of us that have grown up here in Gallatin, it used to take me about 5 minutes to get to my office. Now it takes me about 10. I mean, nobody likes traffic. I think about this particular area, and I think about this particular development. When Leon Moore got his site approved, and he got the neighborhood approved, he got the golf course approved, and the marina was part of this campus. So there was an enormous amount of road infrastructure that was improved at that time. Douglas Bend Road was moved over. I mean, you can see where old Douglas Bend Road is, and there was millions of dollars spent on relocating that road. And that relocation and all that traffic improvement was done for the neighborhood, for the golf course, and for the marina, even though the marina wasn't there. The only reason the marina isn't here now is because in 2008, the financial crisis hit and the bank foreclosed on the marina property. Otherwise, it would have been here in 2008. So traffic is always a concern. As a developer, you're always, worried that whatever you're doing is going to impact it negatively. But a lot of the impact for this and a lot of the concern was done up front. It was paid for in advance of this project coming in. Additionally, we saw that it needed, that entrance on Douglas Bend Road. Although we'd gotten approval for it, all the traffic to come onto Foxland, we felt like it needed that entrance on Douglas Bend Road, and that's why on the subsequent plan, we in advance agreed to put that entrance in and the turning lanes at our expense to help mitigate the traffic.
Yeah. Any comments or thoughts on the requirement being asked for by staff for the building materials to be consistent with Foxland? That is one concern I've had, and I've heard multiple times from folks, is that the consistency of the condos that got built were really attractive, and I got to admit I was skeptical of those when it first came through, and they really turned out nice. I do think if this moves forward, then the architecture and the materials of this needs to be consistent with the rest of what it's around in Foxland. So
it needs to, I look at this from the standpoint, if somebody new comes into town and they drive over here, when it's done, it needs to make sense. You know, they don't need to think in their mind, that looks out of place or this looks out of place. We had engaged an architect, and we told that architect, this is a campus, and it all needs to conform, and it all needs to look very similar. And the elevations that he drew for this dry storage came from that. I look at the buildings that are there, that are on the golf course campus, and I think about, you know, do what we have here, is it timeless or is it dated? I think what was done looks good. I think it matches into it very nicely. If staff feels like we need to comply with the 70-30 rule, then we will comply with the 70-30 rule. I think if y'all approve this tonight, what we'd like to do is then go back, re-engage the architect, and I've been gathering a lot of information. Many residents have given information. We've heard information on the architecture from other people. I'd like to go take that architect and say, here's what all we've heard. You know, try to get us something that everybody likes. That's the hard thing, is because, you know, what's, you know, beauty in the eye of the beholder. We want to find something that everybody feels good about, but everybody's wanting something a little different. But what we might do is come back with 3 or 4 different elevations for the final master development plan, and then let the leadership of City Gallatin, you know, choose from those elevations.
Yeah, whether it moves forward from here and gets to city council, I really think it's important to understand the scale of the elevations relevant to the other buildings that are there. I recall when the condominiums were built, you know, I thought I had an idea, and then when they were actually built, they were so much taller than I anticipated. Now, I do think they look good, but, you know, what's the scale look like? What does it look like from the lake? What does it look like from the neighborhood? Another one of the comments that this particular gentleman made that I was going to ask about, and he had several of them, was about the berm. Is there any way to preserve that berm? Because that does I feel like that does establish an entrance into the neighborhood.
We did. We've been looking at that really hard, and there's a section of big stone rocks that look like they were maybe from the blasted before, that are actually encroach into the parking lot. And so our thought was, we need to remove those because the grade needs to come down to get the parking lot right. But our plan is now to present probably like a nice retaining wall that looks like stone, where you could have lettering of both the marina and you could have lettering of the residential area also, and then do a lot more plantings and add additional landscaping and trees that would really enhance the entrance. Some of the, you know, in the entrance now, for example, there's some Bradford pears that have gotten really large, and most times you can't even use Bradford pears anymore in your landscaping. So it just needs some updating, and so the plans when we did this was to come in with a nice retaining wall, and that I think will look better than the rocks that are there now.
I can't picture what you're saying, but I do know that on that original home site that was on the lower part of that property, there was an old rock retaining wall that was built next to Old Douglas Bend that I always thought was super cool, but I don't know what happened to it. It may have gone away with the first build. But I don't think the residents of Foxland need to drive in and, oh, Marina, scream at them. I think it's more appropriate to have an established entrance where that's over there, but your focus is more towards the clubhouse and the golf course as you come into that neighborhood. And I think that helps. Just let me run through some other questions real quick, because the fish cleaning station.
I haven't heard that yet, but
I haven't
we do have a like a fishing pier that when we went through the Corps of Engineers approval, we did commit to building a fishing pier.
I've never been at a marina in Tennessee that had a fish cleaning area.
It's not a bad idea. I mean, I guess if you
I don't think he was suggesting that. It's something you might offer.
Oh, he didn't like that? Okay.
I don't think so. Restrooms. I do from other marinas, and I have been at many, many marinas, it is a good idea to have some outside-facing restrooms for the people coming and going from boats, because invariably, somebody's coming off the lake and really needs to go to the bathroom, and you don't want them trying to go to the clubhouse, you don't want them going in your restaurant, but I think outdoor bathrooms are really an important part of that, and I think that's valuable. The question was asked by a couple of people about empty trailer parking.
No, we don't anticipate allowing empty trailers to be parked
Thank you,
on the
because
campus.
that is hideous to see, and I think one of the worst things that you can see, and I don't know of many marinas that do allow it, but I wanted to ask that. I know that I was trying to explore, again, just from my own experience, because it's always been my impression that, like, there's so many boats in a marina and they don't leave. What do these people do? Why do they pay to store their boats here and they never use them? But then I have exposure where, oh, some people only use them late afternoon. Some people only use them, for 3 days a year or whatever. And then you had actually shared with me at one point some statistic that said that that a high-use day of a boat storage facility, be it dry storage or a on the water thing, is about 10%. And
10% would be a very busy day of people coming to the marina and getting their boats and taking them out on the lake. Dry storage is probably even a little bit less than the wet storage. Typically, customers who use the dry storage use it because they probably don't go out on a whole lot, and they just want it kept inside a nice area, and when they need it, it's there for them to use. But typically, the dry storage customers use their boat less frequently than the wet boat struck.
I know I had asked you about a no-wake zone, and you said that TWRA had only allowed 200 yards. I'm wondering if there's any way to get them to let you extend that, because I think that would be an absolute gift to the people in that cove to get that no-wake zone moved out. And I even thought, wouldn't it be cool if you could put no wake, no noise? Because it does, I mean, those houses on both sides of that cove, that's, when you got all those wakeboard boats and they're going in circles, I think having a no-wake zone would help actually reduce the traffic, because they wouldn't be out there riding all the time. They wouldn't be blaring the radios. You want to push them to the river and make them use the river for the wakeboard, and let the ski cove, the ski course people use the ski course, obviously, over in the other cove. But that would, to me, if I lived there, that would be such a benefit that could come with this. But I don't know how to navigate that, or if they offer any
I think the feedback we got is they'll allow 250 feet of no wake zone from the furthest point of the dock. And so I think from our standpoint, we would love to have it, go further, and whatever role we can play in that, we would be an advocate for a larger no wake zone.
Well, certainly up there at the, that part, at the end, that's going to cover all the area of the cove, but I just wish it could extend out further towards the channel, because that's difficult. I do think, trying to get that whole no noise thing till you're in the channel, that's just some decent etiquette that I wish people would pay attention to. I think that's all I have on that. I do not, without understanding the scale in relationship to existing buildings, I'm not comfortable with the height of the hotel or the boat storage, but, I do feel like they both are good amenities. I mean, love Old Hickory Lake, but don't like leaving a boat in Old Hickory Lake because it gets so scummy. And it's nice to have an option to be able to store it out of the lake where you don't have to trailer to it. And there were a lot of questions about environmental approvals. I don't know if anybody here feels like they can talk about the Corps' process. I mean, I know that I read through all the different stages, but I certainly can't relay that in a competent manner.
It was a very stringent process that took a long time and had a lot of detail to it. The difference between this marina and the requirements we're going to be obliged to do, as opposed to the last time a marina was built in the city of Gallatin, which was 70 years ago. I mean, it's the difference in daylight and dark, the water quality, the pervious pavers that we're going to be doing, the amount of landscape and the amount of parking that we're going to be doing. It's going to be a state-of-the-art marina that takes in consideration, you know, every possible requirement that we have to comply with in today's world. I think it's going to be a good thing for the city of Gallatin. It's something, again, we haven't had one approved in, 60 some odd years and may not ever get another one approved again. So it's an amenity that, we're going to have to, whatever we get here is going to have to take us forward for a long, long time. So.
Have you ever visited one or seen one that you think is a target prototype, or anything you've seen that you would say is comparable, or?
There is one that a lot of people keep coming back to down in Gunnersville that has a restaurant component. It has a kind of resort feel, and so that's one that keeps popping up. But there's a number of others that that are newer. I think you got to compare it to ones that are new. And it's hard for us to do because, like everything we've got in Sumner County, has been there for a long period of time. I did visit Anchor High here recently. The tornado, tore up a bunch of their docks, and all their docks now are new. So that was a good representation if you go there to look at the docks, because I think the dock company that they utilize would be the similar dock company that we would use too. So that gives you a good representation of what a new dock might look like also.
That's a question on the hotel multi-use building. When we first approved the marina project, I think that was a separate owner. That part of it was going to be 4 more of the condo units that are there. And I recall us talking about the height of those buildings on the water. And when we approved the original condos, it was a stretch for us to approve that 60-foot height, the height allowance up to 60 feet from.
It was 87 feet. It was 87 feet. The condos that are in Reverie Point are 87 feet tall. And then on this parcel 2.1, Joe Godfrey had brought that through, and his maximum height on those, on the same parcel we're working on, that was 87 feet too. So that's why we when we looked at this, we committed, we're going to keep it below that 87 feet. And that would be our, that would be our maximum.
Can I ask a question on
Please.
that? That was a question I was interested in asking, is the finished top of this hotel, multi-use building, is it higher or lower than the top of the condos?
We will commit it will be less. It will be lower than the condo building. It'll be less than 87 feet.
The thing that sticks on top too?
I know.
Is that a name for it? What was the name for it?
But I want to ask my question correctly. It's less than 87 feet, but I don't have a topographical map to see where the base floor elevation of this hotel is.
That's why I said
Is that to say that the top of this building
scale
will be
would
lower
help
than
too.
that? So I wish we could see a 3D projection of
Yeah.
these buildings as well as the surrounding existing buildings so that we understood them relative to the existing buildings.
It's part of the height. I know on the condos that are there, it's the taller part is on the lake side where they had the under parking. Is that similar to what your building would do? That height, that higher measurement, is that because of the grade on the back, or is it?
Well, they did do a basement, but it's 87 feet from the ground floor to the top. Just for example, on the dry storage, we're asking for 55 feet, but we'll probably only have 45 feet or less that will be above grade, but we're still asking for that 55 feet.
Did I understand you right, saying you're going to bring in 2 or 3 more renderings of what this is going to look like?
Yes, to count, and not only that, and Mayor Brown made a good point, we're also going to go back and do a rendering that shows the entire campus from the lake view. So you'll have that, but then also show it also from Douglas Bend. So that'll be part of the submission at the next step when we go to final master development plan.
I would definitely be interested in seeing all of those the additional information to feel like I can make a really good decision on this.
Problem is that's at the FMDP stage.
I understand. I wanted to make sure we had a chance to talk to the applicant, but I'm going to bring up a concern that I have that came up this morning with tonight's meeting, is that the meeting notice that the meeting was on the 19th was properly noticed in the newspaper for the year. However, I had several phone calls this morning asking if the meeting was tonight or to next week, because on the front page of the city website, if you scroll down, it had the meeting date as being next week. So I know of several people that were unable to be here tonight that were confused as to the meeting date.
I wish somebody had let us know. That's the first I've heard of it. Nobody's called our office.
The first I heard of this morning. I reached out to Susan, and she was able to confirm that it was. Yeah. So
There's a conflict due to there being a couple different ways that the calendar is shown on our website, and so one was correct and one was not. When we submit to put something on the agenda, we usually go for the one that was correct, and so what we did from a staff perspective was correct, although there's another calendar that's managed by Jeff Henschel that just hadn't been updated.
So
Memorial Day throws us off this month?
it is, yeah. Memorial Day is next Monday. So, if I had not heard from some members of the public, I probably would have been less concerned about it, but I did have several calls this morning about it, asking for that clarification. So I would prefer that we defer this a month to make sure that everybody who was interested in it had a chance to be here and not feel like they were disenfranchised, since we had some conflicting information on the date. And perhaps that would also give the applicant some time to bring back some of this additional information that might be helpful in the discussion. So,
I mean, even if it's not a rendering, at least a scale to,
I'll speak to that.
Please.
No, it's been a long path. It's been a long journey. We bought the property in 2011, and just the time we spent, submitting everything to the Corps was, it took a long time. Plus, it was super expensive. So we're ready to move forward. I guess the thing that I was like pondering in my mind is, do we go back to the plan that's already approved and then just leave tonight and tomorrow start working on the final master development plan of that and getting it ready to submit? Or do we go and start engaging architects and really start preparing for the final details? I think we did everything we needed to do for the preliminary master development plan, and staff has recommended it with the caveat that we do 70% brick or stone that we've agreed to, and that we do some additional landscaping in the buffer yards, which we have agreed to. So if the city attorney says, hey, the meeting should proceed forward and you should vote, I would like to at least know coming out of tonight that, you like the hotel, you like the dry storage, and then I can go start engaging in architects. Or like if you don't like them, I'd like to know that too. That's probably the one thing that's really important, is the path that we go forward on. I need to know on the dry storage and the hotel, do you like them and you want to move forward and recommend them, or do you not?
Mr. Chairman, we asked the applicant to submit revised architecture, and they didn't submit any changes to it. I know we've stated in our conditions that brick and stone is part of obviously it's part of the regulations, and so we would not recommend any sort of approval without that. But I would caution approving a plan without seeing the updated architectural elevations. I don't think that's the right move for the city to go ahead and vote on that without seeing it updated, if you plan on requiring that. So.
Okay. I'm trying to say the condition related to height. The major minor thing, Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
I was confused because one of the conditions says it's minor, but the study says it should be major, and then I was like,
Maybe I'll just shed some light on that for you.
I don't mind answering that. So we write all of our resolutions in the affirmative in minor. That's just our base standard. Obviously, when you vote that something is major, we update the resolution with that language, and then it goes to city council.
Our vote amends that resolution to the final document that ultimately
but
gets
your
signed.
study does recommend the major, correct?
Okay.
And was part of this plan, was there a traffic study in this?
A
Was it
traffic
listed?
study will come with the final master development plan.
Which is part of the requirements of the FMDP.
That's part of it.
FMPP, I know.
Well, I tell you what I would say. I mentioned my concerns over the meeting dates. So I'm going to make a motion for deferral just because I think that's where I would prefer. And if
What does that do? Because remember, the last item, you asked the applicant to defer versus.
yes, so in this case, I don't see any problem with this coming back in 30 days at our next meeting. If for some reason it did not, we would probably need to have a special called meeting to make sure we meet any time restrictions for automatic approvals under that statute. But I'm making the motion to defer it.
Can I ask a question for you?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any statistics on when it will create the most traffic, what times of days and years? Because the holidays would be a concern, I understand, but that can inconvenience everybody. But the increased traffic, is it going to be morning, evening? I don't know if there's a statistic out there like that.
We don't. I mean, we're prepared to engage on the traffic study, but I would think with the marina, you're going to be non-school times of the year, which typically in traffic studies, it's always like that, time period, rush to get the kids to school in the morning and then a rush to get them home in the afternoon. So I think that would maybe complement from the standpoint, but 4th of July, Memorial Day seem to be the two biggest boating days of the season. And I would think it would be quite busy on those days, certainly.
Question for engineering, just out of curiosity. Y'all require all traffic counts to be taken during school hours, regardless of the type of project, correct?
That's correct. That's our preference.
Okay. Well, just to dispose of the motion I made a motion to defer. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a second for the deferral. Any debate or questions about that item? We've got a motion, a second. There appears to be no conversation about that. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of deferral say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Okay. What's going to be deferred? Hopefully give you a chance to work on some of those things.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll just take a quick break while we let folks in the audience that want to leave.
5 minutes.
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll reconvene.
Who seconded that motion to defer, Mr. Mayor?
All right, we're going to call the meeting back to order at 7:20. And we will proceed with item 18, Resolution 2025-056, Avery Trace, amended preliminary master development plan.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kimberly Atlee, Staff Planner. The owner applicant requests approval for amended P&D for Avery Trace subdivision located south of Timberland Road, east of Eastland Main Street, approximately 110 acres, consisting of 205 single-family lots and 82 townhome lots, a total of 287 single-family homes. The proposal of the amendment is to reduce the number of lots by 6 to create an amenity area. The rest of the development remains the same. Landscaping and architects remain the same. And this is an amendment. Staff believes this is an amendment to the approved and does recommend approval.
All right, thank you. This item does come with a public comment, so at this time, I'll open public comment on Resolution 2025-056. Anyone wishing to speak, this is your time.
Chairman, I will have to recuse myself from this item.
So noted. All right, seeing no one indicating they wish to speak, we will close public comment and ask for representative of the applicant.
Corey Nelson, 615 Design Group. We agree to all staff's comments and happy to answer any questions.
So just to recap, this is the reduction in units to create the space for an amenity center?
Correct, yep.
All right.
With associated parking.
Yes, ma'am.
Not go ahead on lower density or an amenity area. Thank you very much.
Welcome. All right, well, I'll make a motion to approve of staff's 11 conditions of approval.
A second.
Minor, major, please.
Oh, sorry, and I was looking right at it, so.
Make a motion that's minor.
All right, got a motion that's minor, a second by Mr. Thompson. All those in favor of this being a minor amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Passes unanimously. And then I'll go back to my motion of approval with staff's 11 conditions of approval, and a second by Albert. Any discussion, questions? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approval of staff's 11 conditions, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, passes. That will move on to item 19, Resolution 2025-068, Liberty Branch Townhomes, amended preliminary master development plan. And this also has a public comment and will be made a reminder.
Chair. The owner and applicant request approval of an amended preliminary master development plan and revised final master development plan for Liberty Branch Townhomes, formerly Liberty Branch Condos, with 134 townhome units on 10.10 acres, zoned MU mixed-use zone district, located north of Harris Lane and east of Greenway Boulevard at 258 Harris Lane. So this is a small change to adjust the product from a HPR, a one-lot horizontal property regime, to 134 individually platted townhome lots with common open space tracts and public utility drainage and access easements. The lot count is the same. There are exceptions to lot size, lot width, and setbacks that are common when a property or development transitions from HPR to platted lots. And this is consistent with similar townhome developments that we've had. They also have submitted updated architecture that meets the 70% brick stone requirement. We appreciate working through this now on that front. Staff recommends that this be considered a minor amendment and recommends approval with recommends approval of resolution 2025-068 with 13 conditions.
All right, thank you, sir. At this time, I'll open a public comment on Resolution 2025-068, Liberty Branch Townhomes. Public comment is now open. Seeing no one indicating they wish to speak, public comment is now closed, and we will hear from the applicant.
House Domain Dreamfinder Homes.
and I appreciate you guys taking the time to review this. And we think the minor change from the condo to the townhomes better serves the market that we want to sell to. And the changes to the elevations just added a little bit more artistic touch and style and still meet your recommendations.
Any of you had a chance to review staff's conditions of approval? Are you guys okay
Yes,
with
we
all
agree
those?
to everything. Sorry, I should have mentioned that.
No, it's okay. Just want to make sure we got it.
Thank you for the updating the architecture. That was big. I'll make a motion that this would be a minor amendment.
Second.
I had a motion that it's a minor from CJ and a second by John. All those in favor of being a minor amendment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. All right, it is a minor amendment, and I think this is an easy change, and I like to say the updated architecture is good. So I'll make a motion to approve staff's 13 conditions of approval. And a second by Albert. Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approval with the 13 conditions, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, passes unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, staff.
Item 20 is Resolution 2025-070, the paddock at Kennesaw Farms, Phase 2.
Yes, the applicant is requesting approval of an amended PMDP and a revised FMDP for a number of phases within the paddock at Kennesaw Farms development, which is currently underway. The area we are discussing is hatched in the middle of your screen. The proposed amendment to the plan includes the realignment of Truxton Street, which is right here, along phases 3 and 6. The addition of 4 lots in Phase 6A, which were removed from Phase 4D with the previous amendment, and the loss of 1 lot in Phase 3C. This will revise the final lot count from 1476 to 1478, which matches the original PMDP approval. So we are just doing the same exact amount of units, a little redistribution due to a stormwater area in Phase 4 being necessary. And then the realignment of that one street. So staff did recommend this as a minor amendment due to not having an increase in density and approval of the entire item. Thank you.
Ma'am, this item also has a public comment, so at this time I'll open public comment on Resolution 2025-070. Public comment is now open. Seeing no one leaping from their seats, I'll close the public comment and we'll hear from the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Pennington. I'm representing the TAR Group. And like you said, we're not requesting any change in density. We just bumped our lot count up. When we realigned that road, we were able to get a couple more lots.
Okay. Yeah, but we're just back to what was already previously approved, so we're not adding additional lots. Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion that it be a minor amendment.
Make a motion, it's a minor amendment.
I've got a motion that it's minor. Got a second by Albert. All those in favor of it being a minor amendment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. All right, it is a minor amendment.
I'll make a motion that we approve with staff's seven conditions.
All right.
I'll second.
Motion by John, second by Mike, that it be approved with staff 7 conditions of approval. Any questions or further debate?
I just have a really quick question.
Certainly.
The lots adjacent to the roundabout, are those just open space lots or are they commercial?
Are they what kind of lots?
Open space lots.
Oh.
Those are actually mixed-use lots. They're Zone CC Core Commercial,
Okay.
and they will each require their own FMDP when they come in to be developed.
Okay, awesome.
All right, with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, passes unanimously. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Item 21, Resolution 2025-071, McCain's Station Retail, Lot 1.
Good evening, Commissioners. Charlie Pieri, Staff Planner. The owner and applicant request a approval of an amended preliminary master development plan and final master development plan for McCain Station Retail on an 8.5-acre lot located east of Sweetbriar Way and south of Provine Boulevard. The approved PMDP shows Lot 1 as vacant with the proposed future use of retail sales and service. The proposed amendment shows a 45,000 square foot building for that purpose. Just wanted to give a quick recap for some of the things that were discussed at work session and some features of the plan. The current parking layout is listed at 203 parking spaces, which is over the zoning ordinance allowed maximum of 180. There is that exception to go above the maximum with pervious pavers for those additional spots. The applicant has taken the steps necessary to accomplish that. Kane Station Master Development Plan also requires some additional landscaping requirements in the PGC zoning district specifically. The applicant has taken the necessary measures to be in compliance with that as well. The McCain Station plan also requires some street trees along the roadways, particularly on Provine Boulevard and Sweetbriar Way. However, the street trees on Sweetbriar Way have to be relocated to the other side of the sidewalk due to an existing utility line. The architecture plan, which is a significant improvement from what was originally brought before this body back 2 weeks ago. As you can see, or you can barely see that the colors have changed a little bit from a complete dark gray to a more of a two-tone gray and blue. The materials have been updated as well from that utility brick to more of the Kane Station plan requirement of the brick veneer. And there is some metal facets, particularly at the entrances of the building and also on the side for the proposed pharmacy. With that being said, Planning Department staff recommends approval of Resolution 2025-071 with the following 14 conditions. There will be some discussion on condition number 8 regarding the access between Lot 1 and Lot 2B. I will refer to engineering on that. And then I'd also like to add that we would revise the language of condition number 13 to change the language from the GPU to White House Utility District because that's their coverage area. And there is a public comment that is associated with this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Charlie. At this time, I open public comment on Resolution 2025-071. Anyone wishing to speak to this item, this is your opportunity. Public comment is open. Seeing no one wishing to speak, we'll close the public comment. We'll hear from the applicant.
My name is Jacob Carter. I'm with GBT Realty. We're the developer for this property here. We are good with all 14 conditions. The one, again, that Charlie mentioned was condition 8 about providing cross access to Lot 2B. We just would like that removed due to the engineering and grading constraints between the lots and not knowing what's going to go on that lot, especially when they have access to Sweetbriar Road, which sits, about 40 feet from our shared lot line. So it just proves to be difficult to provide that connection. But we are great with all the other conditions.
As for engineering, let's just speak to the cross connection and I guess my first question on that is just I'm looking at the grading plans and the existing topos out there, and I have a hard time figuring out how this gets done.
Sure. And this is kind of a carryover. So when this was originally developed, the intention was for Lot 1, 2A, and 2B to all have some interconnectivity. And so I think the best way that we could have gotten that was with 2A. Because 2A connects to 1, but it doesn't connect to 2B. And I know that there was some discussion when Lot 2A came through about having that connection, but that was removed. So it's carrying forward the interconnectivity of those interior lots. I will say too that if there's no interconnectivity with Lot 2B, they're shown in the kind of the top of the page of having the one connection to Sweetbriar. If they were wanting another connection to Sweetbriar, our office would not recommend another connection.
Even, what about right in, right out?
we would need to see if it makes spacing, and depending on the use, there could need to be an update to an impact study.
Okay. Please, Mr.
So if I understood you correctly, you're saying if we don't provide cross-connectivity now, 2B will only have one ingress egress to the.
That would be our recommendation. But I see what you're talking about with the grading concerns from 1 to 2B. And I think, that was missed with 2A.
I'm assuming that was a topic of discussion whenever 2A came in because of the grade change. The cross connection wasn't provided. And I from a grading standpoint, I mean, it looks like, are those 1 foot contours?
Yes.
So what's 30 feet?
It's 30 feet
from one corner to the next? I mean, if they make, so it's a combo. If they make a cross connection to that lot, the retaining wall, not only the cross connection and the physical act of grading that access in, but also the fact that the apartments have their water quality impacting the lot as well, you almost can't do anything with that lot. And so I appreciate the fact that they've made a connection to the hotel site, but you also have, I guess, that commercial property. I mean, yes, they would be limited to one access point, but you have one full access point onto Sweetbriar that was made to handle that traffic, and then obviously they would have to work with fire from a safety standpoint. Likely, with it being commercial, it's automatically going to be sprinkled anyways.
Is the hotel on lot 2B or 2A?
2A.
Okay. All right. So you're not asking them to connect lots 2A and 2B. You're asking them to make a connection from lot 1 to lot 2B, similar to what's connecting to A.
That's correct.
Just make sure I
And like I said,
understand.
it's carrying forward the original intention for all of that
Yeah.
to interconnect, and that's why it's here.
Yeah, no, and I see the challenge of, we don't know what's going to happen with 2B, is how do you get it, depending on how that develops, it could work, it could not work. It seems to me the only place that, even if you did it, the only place it works is really at the toe of the slope for the stormwater quality from the apartment complex, kind of on the top of the page.
Sorry, finish
No,
your thought.
no, I'm thinking out loud, because it's like, that's the only place, I spent 10 years in the retaining wall business trying to figure out how to make sites work, so I'm trying to wrap my head around where you can make it work, so that as the next lot develops, this works. It'd be much easier, obviously, if we knew what was going to happen with 2B.
Right, because 2B might be something that wouldn't need another connection.
So I mean, potentially, I guess, and that becomes then the challenge. If there is no connection, then it could potentially limit the uses of 2B. So.
Okay, wait, I'm starting to feel like I'm in an Abbott and Costello routine. 1 is on the left, right?
Yes.
2A is on the lower right.
That's
and
correct.
2B is in the upper right.
That's correct.
Okay.
And if we want to get
2B or
corny,
not 2B, I got it.
beat me to it.
Yeah.
Aaron, just for clarity's
You
sake,
want 1 connected to 2B.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, because we can't make 2A make that connection right now.
Yeah, 2A is impossible
Possible.
to get to 2B.
Yep.
I was just going to ask, what's the grade of that, the slope of the grade? Do you know by chance?
No, not off the top of my head. no.
On 2B?
Oh, those grade changes?
5-6%. Could be wrong. It's I think it's 30 feet of grade change across 550 feet, whatever that is.
But eventually, by the time you develop Lot 2B, you're probably going to be building up the lower left corner a bit, I think, build up.
You're gonna have to build the lower left corner
So there's
and
gonna
then
be
cut the other one to get a pad on there.
It's going to be a substantial, sharp grade change between them. I don't see it's not possible. 1 ingress, egress to 2B.
I'll tell you what, first, this also has a major versus minor, and since I'm famous for forgetting to ask for that vote, let's talk about major versus minor. I don't given what was supposed to be here in the beginning, I don't see that it's major unless staff's got a reason that it needs to be major. I'm seeing.
It would be a minor amendment, because basically what we're doing is, we're establishing the use on there. It's already allowed.
It's already an
We're not
allowed
going
use.
Beyond it.
All right, well, in that case, I make a motion that it be a minor amendment. All right, motion by myself that it's minor. Albert was the second. All in favor of being a minor amendment, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, say no. All right, so it is a minor amendment. Now we'll get back to the conversation of an access. So, to hear a motion from anyone?
I mean, so the original plan was just blocks of uses. Like the original PMDP was just blocks of use. There wasn't a master plan associated with it or anything, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it just established the uses. Now, as it's coming through, it's getting the specifics.
That's the master plan, that's the PM.
Yeah, so it was just colors. Okay.
Did you say you agree with all staff's conditions except number 8?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And I'll make a motion a motion for approval, striking condition number 8. Is there any way to put something onto this that says that, however, Lot 2B will be limited to one ingress, egress? That's really a different project.
I think that works itself out during the site plan process.
Okay. Then you have my motion on the floor.
All right, so Mr. Perez made a motion for approval, striking condition 8. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
All right, got a second with Mr. Thompson. The only thing I could add is, the only thing I could think of is, is an easement that would allow a future connection to be built, but we've discussed that numerous times and it doesn't work. So, all right, any other questions on it? All right, with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approval with staff's 14 conditions over striking condition 8, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, it is approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item 22, Resolution 2025-058, Cumberland Landing, a revised master development plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The owner and applicant request approval of a revised final master development plan for Cumberland Landing on a 35.48 acre parcel zoned R10 PRD, medium density planned residential development zone district, and PNC, planned neighborhood commercial zone district, located south of Hartsville Pike and north and east of Cairo Road. The owner and applicant request approval to revise the side yard setbacks for lot 80 and 28 to 10 feet to meet, to allow them to build the currently built product. No other changes are proposed with this revision. A plat amendment will be required for those two lots to mirror the change if approved. Staff recommends approval of resolution number 2025-058 with 5 conditions.
All right, thank you. All right, no public comment. Okay, ask a representative of the applicant.
Luke Talley with CSDG, and we are in agreement with all staff comments. Happy to answer any questions.
I see this as being a pretty minor change for some product. I mean, they're adding, building a larger house, not a smaller one, so.
Likewise, motion to approve with all staff comments.
Got a motion approved by CJ, got a second, Mr. Thompson. That is for approval, staff's 5 conditions of approval. Any further questions or debate? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, it's passed unanimously. Thank you, sir. Item 23, Resolution 2025-072, the crossings at Hidden Creek Phase 3, final master development plan.
The owner applicant requests approval of the final master plan development for the crossings at Hidden Creek Phase 3. It's located east of Big Station Boulevard and north of State Route 386. It's on 8.5 acres and it's zoned MRO. It's consisting of 83 townhomes. The plan does meet the landscaping and architectural designs. It is consistent with the FMDP. construction, engineering, construction plan, and traffic study done per the engineering department for approval first. The minor corrections, staff recommends the resolution of 2025-072 with 15 conditions.
Thank you, ma'am. And do we have a representative for the applicant?
Landon Allison with Kimley Horn, representing the applicant, client here. We're in agreement with all conditions. I do want to talk, though, on condition 2, states move any HVAC units out of the 7.5-foot side yards and PUD areas. We are asking that the end units can keep the HVAC units within the side yard setbacks, but that they are staggered and then also screened. It just really helps out with the backyard area back there and the ways to be able to keep that HVAC unit outside of their patio and backyard areas. Granted, the units that are interior to the cluster would still have HVAC units in the back. It would just be the cap end units. And if you have the site plan on here, it does show a little bit too far there, but we do have the rectangle shown where those are at. But we're good with all other conditions.
Obviously, it's not a concern if you've got the PUD, if you've got enough room to stay out of it. But I mean, I think we've been requiring that AC units stay out of that for a long time. I think, didn't we change, was that changed by ordinance, if I recall?
Traditionally, this is when we traditionally saw 5-foot side yards. We do, according to our code, and typically when these come in, we keep the HVACs out of the 5-foot side yards and easements. So these were 7.5 foot. It doesn't affect all of the lots.
Okay.
7.5 is still small, but I think you could consider that. It's not as tight as the 5 foot. We try and keep it out in general, but.
Yeah, and there's a few that we can move to your point, that it doesn't affect all. I mean, I think it'd only be, I think it's only 6 half-inch units that would be, so let's say a 5x5 HVAC pad would be another 2.5 feet inside that.
I know my own personal experience, when I've submit plans for building a house, I'm a custom home builder, so, even when we have a 10 or 15 foot, PUDE on it, they get rejected unless it's out of that area. So we've completely redesigned everything to make sure that it works. So I'm not saying that changes this conversation. I'm just curious, if we're not willing to do it in a 10-foot side yard setback, why would we do it in a 7.5?
I can tell you from drainage between houses, it's a real problem because the pad is 5 feet deep. And on a 7.5-foot setback, you're talking about the pad coming out 5 out of 7.5 feet. You've got to fall 6 and 10 inches to get proper drainage away from the house. So you end up with the swale between the houses being really sharp.
And that's why we did it.
That's why we did it.
But in his case, this is a little different. He's asking just on the end units where it's not.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Is this on any situation where it would be between houses, or is this only on side end units?
Just side.
I can see that being okay. It's not going to create a drainage problem anyway.
No. And the whole reason it was changed was because of the drainage problems.
Yeah.
So I'm not opposed to it, I guess I'd say, as long as it's on the ends, But just know, if you prove it, expect to see every townhome complex that comes in asking for this.
On every end unit.
Yeah.
We've seen it, but we've seen it both ways.
I don't think we would be talking about this if it was a 5-foot setback.
If it was what?
If it was a 5-foot setback, I don't think we would be having this conversation.
No, it wouldn't, but yeah. But 10 was our cutoff, our limit.
So you're.
Do we want to add language that it's only for those end units?
Well, I mean, it's It's going to naturally only be for the end units because all the interior units have to have them at the back.
So I'm not opposed to it on this project. Where I am concerned is starting a precedent that we're going to see every end unit of every multifamily complex come in asking to put the units on the side. And they're going to point to this one and say, there it is.
So let me ask this. Is there a requirement, if you did stagger them, what would be how much would you stagger them?
We've never gotten in that level of detail. Like you said, this was a result of stormwater issues about 10 years ago when we made that change, which is why, and we were getting so many 5-foot side yards and they were butting up right against each other.
It was a problem.
A lot. And so we've had a number of townhome developments. They went ahead and put them in the rear. If they have room, like some of these lots have bigger side yards than 7.5 feet, then they can put them on those sides. So this was just in the areas where you can't be 7.5 feet away from your neighbor. So.
At one time, didn't the fire marshal code require a certain separation of distance from two buildings?
It was 10 feet and now it's 12 feet.
This is 15.
And these are also townhomes, so will they be sprinkled? Because they're attached?
Yes.
So then it's not as much of an issue if they're sprinkled.
As well as an ordinance change, so any townhome project that comes through, I think it went into effect November of last year, has to be sprinkled, regardless.
Because of the updated building code.
Yeah. So.
What if could we move them to the high side of the swale?
I don't know that I have the brain capacity at this point in the evening to redesign the.
He does.
I promise I'll figure it out.
I tell you what, y'all can amend the motion if you want. I understand, but it's such an important issue. I'm going to make a motion that we approve with all staff's 15 conditions.
I'll second that. So we had a motion, Mr. Pereira. I seconded it for approval with the conditions.
So that does include condition 2.
It does. And again, it's not about this project specifically. It's a precedent that I'm not comfortable setting on future projects. And I feel if we do it, we're going to be inundated with this request.
Precisely, Rob. Yeah. That's why I made the motion.
So, any debate or conversation about that?
No, sir.
All right, then I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor of approval, with all the staff's conditions of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, it's passed. Thank you, sir. Item 24, Resolution 2025-073, the crossings at Hidden Creek Amenity Center.
Yes, the applicant's requesting approval of a final master development plan for the amenity center for the crossings at Hidden Creek. This is directly adjacent to the area that just had FMDP approval with Phase 3. This amenity center includes a building, a pool, and an adjacent parking lot to serve the neighborhood. Based on after the work session, they did flip the pool area and the parking lot to meet the requirements for access for the engineering department. So this works a lot better for those requirements. They did provide a landscaping plan as well as architecture showing a predominantly brick building, very residential in nature to go well with the neighborhood. Staff does recommend approval of this FMDP with 9 conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a representative for the applicant?
We're good with all conditions on this one.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Either one.
Don.
Sorry. Item 25, Resolution 2025-057, 538 East Main Street.
The owner and applicant request approval of a final master development plan for the Jehiah Bible Church, place of worship, on a .54 acre lot zoned MRO, multiple residential office district, located at 538 East Main Street. Some of the highlights, you can see the property as it was and currently. The applicant would like an exception to buffer yards using the existing trees on the edges of the property. There is a legal agreement needed to be submitted stating that this property can use the parking on the adjacent property. And in the work session, we discussed a sidewalk, which the applicant has included on this drawing down Eastland Street. Alternatively, staff has offered, if the applicant includes a 10-foot PUDE on that side of the street, then the sidewalk may not be necessary in that case, but I can let engineering speak more to that. The planning department recommends approval of the resolution with the following 11 conditions.
All right, thank you, sir. And do we have a representative for the applicant?
Chairman, I'll have to recuse myself from this item as well.
All right, that is noted. Thank you.
Yes, this is Corey Nelson, 615 Design Group. Happy to answer any questions. Do want clarification on number 3, if we can talk through that, that'd be great.
Sure.
Those are all my questions on that one, so.
For sure. So, no, we imagine if there's a future sidewalk project along East Eastland that due to just the street and the spacing, that we would do a curb and gutter and then a sidewalk immediately behind that. And so what they've shown here has areas of grass strip on there, so rather than, it wouldn't match what we would do the rest of East Eastland.
Okay.
Which is why we're saying if they provide the 10-foot PUD AE, then they wouldn't have to do that. And I will also mention that if y'all are good with number 3, then you can pretty much strike number 4 and 5, because that really, that pertains to them putting in that sidewalk.
Are you okay providing the easement?
As long as you don't rip out that ADA access in the back. I think that's, crosses your PUDAE. That's probably the only thing. I think, is there an aerial view of that back? If you look, zoom in right there.
The back corner coming out of the building?
You don't have street, Google Street View? Yeah, if you can you zoom into that?
But it'll be back here.
I can zoom in on my screen, but you can't see it.
We don't have that capability.
Back in here is an access, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
No, I'm just talking about the ADA ramp and the PUDAE.
Yeah, so his existing covered ADA ramp would be inside of the 10-foot easement. So you would have to.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say to that is like where you guys' right-of-way line is, I think it'll work with the pavement. I just want to make sure that that's like kind of noted for the record that
it needs to be grandfathered in.
It is a just as built. This is not a proposed. They're not trying to go into that. They're not trying to update that. So.
No, yeah, we would work as best as we can within that. Like you said, I think there's enough of the right of way to do that, especially if there's no grass strip.
Yeah, I think that would be. That'd be agreeable.
All right, I'm going to make a stab at a motion that makes me comfortable with that. So, I mean, a motion to approve, striking conditions 4 and 5, however, modifying condition 3 to add the covered ramp and ADA access to the building shall be allowed in the easement or PUD.
Sorry, I have a question on that motion.
There's no second, so talk away.
Okay. Could you go to the next page with the motions? Would that also apply to, I can't read. Where's the site surety one? Go back.
Site surety?
Oh, yeah. 10. I'm guessing that site surety only relates to the sidewalk because that's really all we're doing as far as.
Well, if there's no sidewalk, it's not in your calculation.
Yeah, so can we have that also striked?
Is there any, like, if that would cover any new landscaping as well and any new stormwater as well?
Okay.
So
You're not getting off the
I'd ask to keep that just in case.
Awesome. Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to approve with staff's 11 conditions, striking condition 4 and 5.
Well, I already had a motion on the floor.
Oh, did you? I didn't hear you. Okay.
It's okay. Sir, it is currently 8 o'clock on the dot, and you're welcome to have misheard. Now, my motion, I'll just restate it, was to approve with staff's 11 conditions, striking conditions 4 and 5, but adding to condition 3 the sentence that the existing covered ramp and ADA access be a permitted use in the easement.
Second.
I do not have a second. I have a second, Mr. Thompson.
You do.
All right, does that make sense to everybody? I just want to make sure we have clarity that that's allowed in there. Ms. Rose?
I just had a question. If in the future, those trees along Eastland would be removed if the sidewalk project does go in, do you know how much room there is there?
That's a great question.
I'm asking Aaron.
I would say that some of those trees would be affected by the construction.
If you're putting curb and gutter through there, those trees are affected by the construction, whether the sidewalk's there or not, right?
Are you doing the grass strip?
No, the section of a sidewalk along East Eastland, I would imagine, would just be a 2.5-foot curb and gutter and a 5-foot sidewalk immediately, like, abutting that curb.
So the only things I see that affect that is the 2 trees in the rear on East Eastland and the corner tree with the fire hydrant next to it.
Probably needs to go anyway.
So that's, the other ones seem to have clearance.
So the plan hasn't been developed. I don't know how close it would be.
I mostly just was asking so that we get it on the record that we at least considered them.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're large trees and.
Yeah, that was my, where I was trying to ask for the sidewalk to not affect them. But, the information that the city's considering doing a curb and gutter through there and an existing, that in the future is going to tie into a sidewalk network, I think makes this make sense not to do it. And I'm sure if there's trees removed, there'll be something replanted in their absence. So, all right. Any further questions, debates? Got a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval with staff's comments as amended, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. All right. Thank you, sir. All right, it takes us down to other business announcement and adjournment.
One item.
Yes, sir.
So we'll call it item 2025-0438 is request approval of a pay raise for planning commission members before next month.
Pay by hour versus meeting.
I just need a Keurig to have coffee at the breaks. All right. Anything else, staff? All right, motion to adjourn. Got a second. I got a motion from Albert to adjourn. Do I have a second?